Hey everybody, it's Gypsy. This video is mostly for women. My occupational therapist just left. It was our last appointment together. I'm going to be reset up with physical therapy very soon because more than likely I will be told tomorrow that I could start weight bearing and working on walking. But anyways, as I had mentioned in the past, my occupational therapist stressed to me the difference between a man's bones and a women's bones. Women's bones. He said the fluorescent light that is in a tube that's you can't break it. It's really strong. Is more like a man's bones, where women are more like an empty beer bottle, and if you drop it, it shatters. He did imply this is like whole life through, but once you're postmenopausal, it's even more different. Okay, so your density goes down, and I was diagnosed with osteopenia probably several years ago. And as we know, I didn't just fracture; I shattered my bone. Um, so what he told me is when an orthopedic doctor is telling you to take the next step and like go on to weight bearing or whatever, he says what they don't take into consideration is whether they're dealing with a man or a woman. He said there's a big difference. He said a woman has to be more careful. And he said, especially my case where they had to reconstruct the bone, I really have to be careful. He says, now tomorrow, I'll bet your doctor's going to tell you start putting weight on your leg. It's tolerated. Um, he says, do it at your own pace. He says, I suggest you take it as slowly as possible. Uh, get to walking gradually. He said, take your time. He says, you are going to walk again, but he goes, I want you to take it slowly because you are a woman. And I'm also a woman in her late 50s. I'm going to be 59 in, well, 6 months. So he said, what will happen is physical therapists, he says, they are on the patient's side and they are trying to do what's best for the patient. He says, but they are going to rush you along because of the insurance thing. He says they are going to push you further than what you're ready for. And I'm sharing this because I think, well, not just men need to know this too, but if you're a woman with a broken bone you're trying to heal from, he says they're going to push you. And he says they're going to want you to go from your walker to a cane very quickly. He said, I don't want you to do that. He says, while you're relearning to walk, he says, use your walker as long as you possibly can. He said, it's more stable, etc. But he says this thing with insurance is causing a lot of problems for patients. Um, he says they determine the time frame. So now these new protocols, he said, is like with a surgery like mine, the doctor is put weight on it as tolerated. Well, it's never tolerable in this situation because there is always pain until your knee and your entire leg gets used to doing it. So you never really know when's the right time. That's where the physical therapists come in. But they're rushing you because insurance is only given so much time to them. So they're wanting you to get to that point. He says, okay, so they're going to say first, oh, you walk 5 feet. He says, oh, she's walking 10, 20. Then, you're up to 40 feet, 100 feet, whatever. And he says, that's when your physical therapy will end. He says, I don't care. He says, you take it as slow as possible, whether you meet that goal or not. He says, it doesn't matter. You just do it slowly. He said, physical therapy ends. He says, you're going to still walk. You'll work your way up to walking naturally. He says, so never push yourself. He says, remember, you are a woman plus your age. Not that I'm old, but I'm at that point. So he says, do it slowly. And I did mention to him that, you know, I want my doctor to do another bone density test so I can see if my osteopenia has progressed and did it get to osteoporosis. And he goes, well, you could do that. He says, but there is nothing that's ever going to reverse that process. He says, and it's really, he says, no matter your diet or medication, whatever, he says it's just going to keep progressing. He said the best a woman can do is, especially postmenopausal, be careful with the activities you are doing. Don't take risks. Do your best not to put yourself in a situation where you're going to fall. Now, in my situation, I just walked out into my yard. I didn't think I'd fall. Um, but he says that's the best a woman can do is just to be careful what they're doing. But he says you get injured and the doctor gives you these guidelines. He said take it at your own pace and take it as slowly as possible because you need to make sure that your bones have melded and healed as much as possible before you start doing that. So, this was advice to women, and again, my complaining about the insurance mafia and how they control our um, medical professionals who have gone to school for years and have had training and have experience doing this are being overridden by, well, people sitting in offices in an insurance company. Anyways, yeah, it's really stupid. But just wanted to share that information with the women. Please be careful with your skeletal structure and what you are doing. Even that, you're an active person, have always done sports and stuff like that. It does make you stronger and stuff like that. But because I was in good condition before I got hurt, your bone structure, it sounds to me like it's going to deteriorate regardless. Now I take calcium, I take this, I do that. I'm just found where I can get farm fresh, non-homogenized milk. I'm really excited about that. So I'm going back to, but I was drinking raw milk all the time, yogurt, stuff like that, all the time. But still, my bones shattered. And yeah, taking calcium pills and stuff like that, it still happened. So, especially, the young women, keep that in mind. Still be careful because your bones still are more fragile than a man's. But once you hit that point where you are no longer in your childbearing years, your bone density is going to go down. So just be careful with that. I'm going to leave you with that. Blessed be and make it a joyful one.